I couldn't even take it no more. I had to throw the DVD collection away. And fucking, I would love to hear one of those guys what they said when they found out that week.
Didn't they say that he fucked everybody, men and women?
Oh yeah, he banged everybody.
He fucked everybody.
Yeah, and then it came out he was banging the guy with the big dick in Cuba.
That's right.
The Superman. He sucked his dick
That's
too.
right. That's right.
So fucking poor Italian people, if they were Godfather fans, they were lighting those fucking DVDs on fire. Fuck Marlon Brando.
Poor homophobes. I like him more now. I like Marlon Brando
I
more
love
now.
Marlon Brando. Yeah, I don't give a fuck. I always listen. Marlon Brando, dog.
Me, Richard Pryor, thinking about Richard Pryor getting so coked up that he let Marlon Brando fuck her was one of the things I was like, unless he loved. That's prejudice with me. I should just assume he enjoyed it. And assume he enjoyed having sex with Marlon Brando. Why should I give a shit, right?
Listen.
For it,
Just
right?
remember one thing. Because you're going to die when I tell you this.
Uh-oh.
Marlon Brando told the studio and to give him $100,000 to read Superman. Like, you know when people call you up, Joe, hi Joe, this is Cynthia from your agents.
Right.
I'm sending you a script over for you to approve to read. Give me $100,000.
Give me $100,000, I'll read it.
When he went to the island, he went deep. And he believed his ego. You gotta remember, that was an all-time record for a long time when he got the Superman. He banged him out. He took him to the cleaners type shit.
Him.
He fucked him up in the ass bad. Like big money. Find out what they paid him in 1970, whatever, for Superman. Remember, he fucked him big time. I think it's Mutiny on the Bounty. One of those movies, they kept saying that, oh, we have a beautiful spot for you right here in Marina Del Rey. If we do this, we gotta do this on this island I found. He had gone down there and fallen in love. He's like, there's a bunch of running around with leaves on. You know, Diamond, how to do that? He made the studio shoot down there, and then they never went down there. Who wants to go to fucking Marina? Eight at a time, just having orgies, banging kids. All those kids that shot themselves, all those kids he had, remember?
Oh my God.
All those poor kids that fucking, God rest their soul, all those problems he had. He was down there like fucking just matadoring. Whoever Paramount, whoever the network was, showed up down there and said, let's see the dailies. I said, what the fuck is this? You're done. They brought somebody else in. Marlon ended up saying, fuck it, I'll buy the island. He bought the island, didn't he? Like, this is just crazy shit I heard over the years. And they just lived on the island. And then if they wanted, they had to call the island. And they had like levels. Right? You want me to read the script, that's gonna cost you 80. Oh, you want me to come to the studio? That's 300,000. But he had levels of fucking, and they would give it to him. They would, and then they didn't want him for the Godfather. They were like, no, there's no way we want that fucking guy.
Wow.
And then finally he put the tape in his mouth and all that shit, and they approved him. He did bro, that movie's like a porn. The one he did, that Last Tango in Paris.
Is it?
That's like a light porn. And then the chick came out years later and said, that motherfucker Stone Cold raped me. He was the king of Me Too. He invented Me Too, that motherfucker, dog.
Wow.
Yeah, she came out years later and said something about she didn't know what Marlon Brando went in there and choked her out like the queen in fucking in The Getaway. She
on the Sexual Assault Survivors Bill of Rights tour. My name is Terry Crews. I am an actor, author, former athlete, advocate, and a survivor of a sexual assault. This past year, we have seen powerful men in Hollywood and elsewhere finally held accountable for sexual harassment and assault. We also saw backlash survivors face
Oh my God,
after
what the
coming
hell? Is that
forward.
a clone?
I wanted these survivors to know that I believed them. I supported them, and that this happened to me too. This encouraged me to come forward with my own experience and reflect on the cult of toxic masculinity that exists in our society.
You see the person
As
looking
a
right at the
child,
camera?
I watched my father violently
The person
abuse
looking right at the
my
camera
mother,
right behind him?
using his
Or she
power
was.
and
No, the
authority
girl.
to dominate her.
Yeah.
All I could think of was how to protect her.
So
How
weird.
if I get strong, I can protect her from this living nightmare. As I grew up, this thought transformed the type of man I became. I swore I would never be like my father, and yet I believed to my core that as a man, I was more valuable in this world than women. As a protector and symbol of strength, I was more worthy, that women were beneath me. I used images of women's body and pornography at my disposal, validating my need for control. I often cut women short of sharing personal details of their lives so they would seem less human, less real. As a man, I was taught my entire life that I must control the world. So, I used power, influence, and control to dominate every situation, from the football field to the film set, even in my own home with my wife and children. Then, in 2016, while at a party with my wife, I was sexually assaulted by a successful Hollywood agent. The assault lasted only minutes, but what he was effectively telling me while he held my genitals in his hand was that he held the power, that he was in control. This is how toxic masculinity permeates culture. As I shared my story, I was told over and over that this was not abuse, that this was just a joke, that this was just horseplay. But I can say that one man's horseplay is another man's humiliation. And I chose to tell my story and share my experience to stand in solidarity with millions of other survivors in the world. That I know how hard it is to come forward. I know the shame associated with assault. It happened to me. I'm not a small or insecure man, but in that moment and in the time following, I've never felt more masculine. As I watched women and colleagues in my industry come forward to share their Me Too stories, this shame washed over me again and again, and I knew I had to act. I am honored to use my platform and story to help create additional civil rights protections for survivors across the nation under the Sexual Assault Survivors Bill of Rights. Which is why the Sexual Assault Survivors Bill of Rights is a critical bill that must be enacted in all 50 states. This bill gives survivors the right to a fully government-subsidized rape kit to alleviate the financial burden of seeking justice. It gives survivors the right to receive information, including access to police reports, rape kit results, and access to sexual assault counselors. And by requiring that rape kits and forensic DNA evidence be retained for the duration of the statute of limitations, this bill gives survivors the right to have time to distance themselves from the immediate trauma before making the difficult decision to report the assault to law enforcement. This is why I sit here today with Amanda Wynn and the RISE team.
I just see him
Every
start singing.
man, woman,
Witches.
and child deserves to be seen as equal under the law. The Sexual Assault Survivors Bill of Rights does just that by recognizing survivors' basic civil rights. While we can call attention to a culture of toxic masculinity and the need to disrupt power dynamics, this bill creates long-term change and gives power and control back to survivors. All survivors must be protected, and this bill must be enacted in all 50 states. Thank you.
Mr. Cruz, you told us about your experience. Do you know about experience of other people in Hollywood, and tell us, just give us a general statement about it being a problem there? Not that Hollywood is a measure of what we ought to be doing, but since that's your experience, I'd like to hear what you say about that.
Thank you for your question, Senator. Anywhere where there is a power dynamic is where this problem is really rampant. I've seen it in sports. I've seen it in politics. I've seen it with a racial component. I've seen it with economic components. And Hollywood definitely has been a problem area simply because there are so many people who view this as a dream. And what happens is someone has power over these dreams. And what happens also is that you get tricked into thinking that this type of behavior is expected, that it's part of the job, that this harassment, abuse, even rape is part of your job description. And, you know, I sit here before you in this committee just as an example, because a lot of people don't believe that a person like me could actually be victimized. And what happened to me has happened to many, many other men in Hollywood. And since I came forward with my story, I have had thousands and thousands of men come to me and say, me too, this is my story. But I did not have the confidence, or I did not feel safe enough to come out, because what happens is, you know, you get blacklisted. Your career is in danger. After that, no one wants to work with you. And it is really, really important, I feel, to keep this conversation going. And another thing is, I heard time and time again about the rights that my predator had, but I was never told about the rights that I had as a survivor. And that was the wake-up call that I knew I had to be a part of what's happening here today in regards to the Sexual Assault Survivors Bill of Rights. Because now, if you know what you can do, you can actually do something about it.
Senator Feinstein.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Cruz, I'd like to just continue where the chairman was in his questioning. So this happened to you at an event. Was it a single instance, or were there more instances? Who did you talk to about it? What kind of advice did you seek? Did you hide it? Because you know, you're very overt, you're very direct. And I wonder if that was you at the time, or this is a new you.
Thank you for your question, Senator. I was very vocal immediately. I was at an event with my wife, and what happened was the person who did this was he was the head of the motion picture department at my own agency. I don't know what was going on in his head. He actually did it twice in the same night in front of my wife. He says he was drunk. He said he was under, you know, he wasn't himself. And I immediately, you know, the first reaction was to be violent. And I immediately held back.
Why weren't you? You're a big, powerful man. Why didn't you?
Senator, as a black man in America,
say it as it is. I think it's important.
You only have a few shots at success. You only have a few chances to make
Oh my
yourself
god, he's gonna cry in the background.
a viable member of the community. I'm from Flint, Michigan. I have seen many, many young black men who were provoked into violence.
This guy does
And
not
they were
fucking
in
change.
prison. And
Yeah,
then,
it's
or
creepy.
they were killed.
It's like,
And they're not here.
interesting.
My wife, for years,
Probably the
prepared
fucking
me.
guy who touched him.
She said, if
The
you
guy
ever
that's
get
mad behind
goaded,
him.
if you ever get prodded, if you ever have anyone try to push you into any kind of situation, don't do it. Don't be violent. And she trained me. I'll be honest with you. It was the strength of my wife who trained me and told me, if this situation happens, let's leave. And the training worked. Because I did not go into my first reaction. I grabbed her hand, we left. But the next day, I went right to the agency. Right, and I have texts, I have phone conversations, and I said, this is unacceptable. And I told them how, I almost got violent, but I didn't. And I said, what are you going to do about this predator that you have roaming your hallways? And I was told, we're going to do everything in our power. We are going to handle this territory. You're right, it is unacceptable. And then they disappeared. Nothing happened.
Did you go back again? Did you talk to them again?
Yes, I talked to
And
everyone I could talk to.
Why did they disappear?
And I asked I said, this man actually called me and he apologized.
The guy looks guilty in the background.
And this was the thing. And they were like, my bad. And I'm going,
So you were supposed to forgive and forget. And that was the agency position, are you saying?
That's what they were saying.
Yeah.
And I said, first of all, we're not talking about you stepped on my foot by accident. That's where, I'm sorry, I didn't know what I was doing. You assaulted me. Assaulted. And I fully expected them to, first of all, to fire this individual. And that didn't happen. I expected there to be an investigation, and that didn't happen. And
So it was hushed up.
I have to tell
Shoved
you,
under the rug.
it was hushed up. And in the culture at that time, I believe no one would believe me if I went public. I actually was trying to handle it with them. And once the Me Too movement broke, and once I saw some of Weinstein's victims come forward, it actually empowered me to tell my story in support of these women.
Let me ask you, do you talk with others? Do you find this is true with others as well? That they are empowered now to stick it out? I see it with a lot of women coming forward. I don't see it with a lot of men coming forward.
Well, yes, thank you, Senator, for that question. There have been men coming forward, but I have to say the silence is deafening when it comes to men talking about this issue, simply because
The guy's like,
you're talking about a complicit system. You're talking about women who
Reminds me
are
of Ren and
raped,
Stimpy.
thrown behind dumpsters, and their dads say, hey,
The guy with the weird
we shouldn't
foot.
ruin his life because it's about time. We're in Hollywood where, men look at other, it's a whole other system where they view the casting couch as perks of the job, where they literally judge the women on how they look and who's going to attack her first. I have been privy to these conversations, and I have to say, you gotta understand, I'm not pointing a finger. I, as Terry Crews, was a member of this toxic masculine world. And where, no, did I molest anyone? Did I assault anyone? Did I rape anyone? No, but I was complicit because I looked the other way. I've always said that men need to hold other men accountable. that is the only way the system is going to change. When you see something, when you see this type of behavior, if another man can come up to a man and say, we don't do that, we're not allowing that here, all of a sudden the culture will begin to change. And if I have to be the first one that's going to do it, then let it be. I will be that one.
My time is up, but thank you for your strength, your honesty, and your perseverance. It's very important. Thank you.
But has there been retaliation against you for what you are saying now to the public?
Thank you for the question, Senator. One specific incident of retaliation was I've done 3 movies called The Expendables with Sylvester Stallone. The producer of that film called my manager and asked him to drop my case in order for me